The building looked normal enough when I first saw it. 6 stories of weathered brick, windows lined with curtains that barely moved. Rent was cheap, too cheap for the city, but I didn't ask questions. I needed a place fast, and this was the only one available. When the landlord handed me the keys, he slipped an envelope into my palm. "Read this carefully," he said, not meeting my eyes. The paper inside was smeared, the letters shaky but legible, written in what looked disturbingly like dried blood. The note wasn't long. It simply listed rules, numbered from 1 to 10. At first, I thought it was some bizarre joke until I noticed the bottom, where a handprint, faint and red, had left its mark. Rule 1. Do not look out your window after midnight. Rule 2. Never ride the elevator alone if it stops on the 4th floor. Rule 3. If you hear knocking from the walls, knock back only twice. I laughed nervously, folding the note. The landlord's expression didn't change. "Follow them," he muttered before leaving. Alone in my new apartment, I read the rules again. My laughter faded, replaced with a creeping chill. The first night was uneventful. I unpacked, cooked instant noodles, and tried to ignore the occasional creak from upstairs. Still, as the clock neared midnight, I found myself staring at the window. Rule 1 echoed in my head, and I pulled the blinds shut before midnight struck. I barely slept. Around 2 a.m. something tapped against the glass. Just once, deliberate and sharp. My chest tightened. I told myself it was a branch, though I was on the 5th floor. I refused to look. By dawn, my blinds were trembling as if someone had brushed them. The next evening, I chose the elevator over the stairwell. My arms were full of groceries, and I was exhausted. The next evening, I chose the elevator over the stairwell. My arms were full of groceries, and I was exhausted. It hummed down smoothly until it jolted at the 4th floor. The doors slid halfway open. Nobody stood there. The lights above flickered. I froze, remembering Rule 2. Never ride alone if it stops on the 4th floor. My thumb hovered over the close button as the space between the doors widened. In that sliver of darkness, I saw fingers, long, pale, curling inward like they were beckoning me. I slammed the close button until the elevator shrieked shut. It groaned, dropping fast before opening at the lobby. My groceries spilled, cans rolling across the floor. The doorman, an old man with a lazy eye, didn't react at all. He just muttered, "You're lucky." The rules weren't just warnings. They were survival. I started memorizing them word for word. I taped the list to my fridge, though every time I looked at it, the stain seemed darker, fresher, as though the blood was still wet. On the 3rd night, I heard it, knocking from inside the wall behind my bed. 3 knocks, steady and patient. My throat tightened. Rule 3 said knock back only twice. With shaking hands, I rapped twice with my knuckles. Silence followed. Then, after a moment, 2 knocks replied. I almost screamed, but instead I pressed my palms against my ears and curled into my blanket. I didn't sleep, not until sunlight streamed through the curtains. The laundry room was in the basement, a dim space reeking of bleach and mold. A faded poster warned tenants not to overload the machines. But next to it was another paper, taped crudely to the wall. The same messy handwriting. Rule 6. Never wash clothes after 11 p.m. I didn't question it. I stuffed my clothes into the washer at noon, my back prickling the entire time. There was something about the basement, the way the pipes rattled like someone breathing too close. Neighbors rarely spoke. The woman in 3B avoided eye contact, clutching her child's hand too tightly. The man in 6D looked half-starved, his eyes ringed with purple shadows. When I said hello, he only whispered, "Don't open the trash chute after dark." That rule wasn't on my list. But when night fell and the chute rattled outside my door, I pressed my back against the wall and waited. Something inside scraped against the metal, as though claws dragged upward. On the 5th night, I returned late from work. Exhausted, I nearly forgot Rule 1. Midnight was minutes away. My blinds were open, city lights spilling into the room. I rushed to close them, but froze halfway. Something was pressed against the glass. A face. Pale, wide-eyed, and upside down like someone was hanging outside my 5th floor window. Its mouth moved silently. Then, as the clock struck midnight, it vanished. My hands shook so badly I ripped the blinds, pulling them shut. I couldn't sleep. I kept rereading the list, but my eyes caught on something new: Rule 11. It hadn't been there before. Written beneath the others, in the same crimson hand: when the coin rolls into your apartment, do not touch it. The mention of a coin unsettled me. I searched the floor, the hall, even under my bed. Nothing. But that night, just past 3 a.m., I heard it, the delicate clink of metal rolling across linoleum. It stopped just outside my bedroom door. I didn't move. The sound lingered in my head, like an itch. Curiosity clawed at me, but I clung to the blanket, eyes squeezed shut. When dawn came, I opened the door. A dull, tarnished coin sat there, its surface etched with something resembling an eye. I left it untouched. Hours later, it was gone. No draft, no neighbor. Just missing. The rules were keeping me alive, I realized, but why? Who wrote them? And why me, in this cursed apartment complex? That evening, I knocked on the door of 6D. The man peered through the chain, his skin waxy. "Don't ask about the rules," he whispered. "They notice when you ask." Then he shut the door so fast I flinched. The hallway light flickered above me. A shadow passed along the far wall, though no one was there. I hurried back to my unit, heart pounding. On my fridge, the rules list seemed longer again. Rule 12. Do not answer the phone after 2:13 a.m. That night, I unplugged my phone. At exactly 2:13, the disconnected line still rang. The sound was hollow, metallic, echoing through my apartment. I buried my face in a pillow, praying for silence. Eventually, the ringing stopped. The next morning, my voicemail had one new message. A distorted voice whispered, "You shouldn't have ignored me." I deleted it immediately, but the sound clung to my skull like oil. By the end of the week, I hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time. Every rule weighed on me like a chain. Then, one night, the coin returned. This time, it rolled slowly into my living room, stopping at my feet. The metal glinted faintly in the dark. My hands twitched to grab it, but I remembered Rule 11. Instead, I backed away. That's when I heard a soft laugh, coming from the wall behind me. It was a child's laugh, but warped, too slow. My skin crawled. I pressed against the opposite wall, whispering to myself. When I blinked, the coin was gone again. The walls kept knocking. Sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times. Always testing me, waiting for me to answer wrong. I followed the rules, but dread curled inside me. It wasn't just about survival. It was about obedience. One night, the trash chute clanged violently. I peeked through the door's peephole. A figure crouched near the chute, its body twisted and wrong. It held something in its hand, something small and round. The coin. The figure lifted it to its face, and I saw empty sockets where its eyes should have been. It sniffed the coin like it carried a scent, then dropped it into the chute. The next morning, my fridge list had another addition. Rule 13. Do not look into the chute. My stomach dropped. Whoever was writing these knew exactly what I had done. I wanted to leave. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and bolted for the front doors. But the doorman stopped me. His lazy eye twitched. "You can't go yet," he said flatly. "The rules won't let you." My breath caught. What do you mean the rules won't let me? He just looked past me, toward the elevator, and muttered, "4th floor's been waiting." Then he turned away like nothing had been said. I tried anyway. The glass lobby doors wouldn't budge. I pushed until my palms ached, but they didn't even rattle. Outside, the street was empty, frozen like a picture. No cars, no pedestrians, not even wind. The rules weren't just guidelines. They were a prison. And something wanted me here. Something that rolled coins, whispered through walls, and carved new warnings in blood. That night, I found the coin inside my refrigerator, sitting neatly beside the milk, its tarnished eye staring at me. I slammed the door shut, trembling. When I opened it again, the coin was gone. The last rule on the list had changed again. Now it read, Rule 14, when the coin chooses you, the rules will end. My hands shook. For the first time since moving in, I realized the truth. The rules weren't about keeping me alive. They were about preparing me. The thought of the rules ending terrified me more than following them. If they ended, what would be left? The coin wasn't protection, it was a verdict. I felt watched, judged, like the walls themselves were waiting for me to fail. That night, I awoke to the faint chime of metal again. The coin rolled under my bedroom door, slow, deliberate. I didn't touch it. My heart hammered as it stopped at the base of my bed. I froze, staring at it in the dim glow of my alarm clock. The tarnished I carved into its surface seemed to glisten, like it was wet. Then, without warning, the coin tipped on its edge and began spinning. It spun longer than any coin should, humming softly, filling the room with a low vibration. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. When it finally toppled, the sound was deafening in the silence. The air grew heavy. My lights flickered, and shadows thickened in the corners of the room. I whispered to myself, begging for morning, but the darkness pressed closer, like it was listening. At dawn, the coin was gone again, but Rule 15 had appeared. It read, "When the coin enters your room, do not sleep." My blood ran cold. I had already failed. That day, I wandered the halls, desperate for answers. The man in 60 opened his door just enough to whisper, "It's already marked you." His eyes darted nervously to the floor. When the coin chooses, the rest is inevitable. I demanded he explain, but he shut the door, locking it tight. A faint scratching sound echoed from inside his apartment, like nails on wood. I backed away, unsettled. Later that night, the phone rang again at 2:13 a.m., even though it was unplugged. This time I answered. The line hissed with static, then a voice rasped, "You should have left when you could." My stomach twisted. "I tried," I whispered. The voice chuckled. "The rules are not chains. They are teeth. They bite when broken." The call ended with a sharp click. I sat in the dark, trembling. That's when I noticed the coin again, glinting faintly from atop my dresser. My reflection in its tarnished surface wasn't mine. The eyes staring back were hollow and endless. Panic overtook me. I threw the coin into the hallway, slamming my door shut. But the sound of metal rolling came back instantly, stopping outside my room, patient as ever. The walls throbbed with muffled knocks. They weren't random this time, they followed a rhythm. 3 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks. Pause. 3 again. It almost sounded like a code. I pressed my ear to the wall. A whisper seeped through the plaster. "Count them." My breath caught. "Count them. Count the knocks. Count the rules." The whispers didn't clarify. They only repeated, urgent and sharp. By the next morning, Rule 16 was etched into the fridge. When the knocking begins, do not count. My legs gave out. I had already done it. I staggered into the stairwell, desperate to leave. But no matter how far I descended, I always ended back on the 7th floor. Each flight repeated endlessly, looping me in concrete purgatory. In my panic, I slammed against the stairwell door. It opened onto the laundry room instead of the hall. The machines were silent. The one dryer door slowly creaked open. Inside I saw it, the coin. It sat at the center of the metal drum, glimmering faintly under the fluorescent lights. My reflection in it smiled, though I was not. I stumbled back, heart racing, and fled. Back in my unit, I collapsed against the fridge. Another rule had appeared. Rule 17. Do not run from the coin. My stomach churned. Every mistake tightened the noose. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the corner of my bedroom, staring at the door. At 3 a.m. the coin slid under again. This time I didn't move. It spun, it hummed, and when it stopped, everything went silent. The silence after the coin stopped was worse than the noise. It wasn't just quiet, it was suffocating, thick, like the world had stopped breathing. My clock froze at 3:07 a.m. The second hand didn't move. I whispered to myself, anything to break the stillness. But my words seemed swallowed, devoured. Then slowly I realized there was a sound after all, a faint drip, drip, drip. I followed it into the bathroom. The sink faucet was bone dry, yet the porcelain bowl was filling with something dark and thick. My stomach turned as I leaned closer. It wasn't water. It was blood, thick, warm, and steaming faintly as it pooled. and floating in the center, perfectly balanced on the surface tension, was the coin. I stumbled back, gagging. My reflection in the mirror didn't move when I did. It stood perfectly still, head tilted, eyes locked on me. Then it smiled. My scream caught in my throat. The reflection's lips parted, whispering soundlessly. I couldn't hear the words, but I felt them, obey. My body shivered as though the command had been carved into my bones. By morning, the blood was gone. The bathroom was spotless, the mirror ordinary. Only Rule 18 remained, scrawled across my bedroom wall. Never touch what floats. I stopped leaving my apartment. I couldn't. The hallways twisted, the stairwell looped, and the elevator only opened onto places I didn't recognize. The building was changing around me. I tried the windows. They showed nothing but endless fog. No streets, no cars, no city. Just blank white stretching forever. I pressed my hand to the glass. It was warm like skin. That night, I heard shuffling in the hall. Heavy footsteps dragged past my door, followed by the scrape of metal against wood. The doorknob twitched, slowly turning, though I had locked it. I pressed my weight against the door. The knob stopped, but a voice whispered through the crack. "You don't belong here yet." The words slithered into my ear, curling like smoke. When dawn came, Rule 19 appeared. Do not hold the door shut. If it wants in, let it pass. My body went cold. I had done it again. The days bled together. Sometimes the coin rolled into my room. Sometimes it appeared on the stove, in the fridge, in my bed. I stopped throwing it away. No matter what I did, it returned. I noticed something else. Each time the coin appeared, it was dirtier. Tarnished, cracked, almost eroded, like it was wearing down with each violation. And with each crack, something leaked out. Shadows stretched too long, corners darkened, and whispers grew louder. It was as though the coin was holding something in, and I was breaking it. That night, I found it on my pillow. I stared at it for hours, terrified to touch it. But as exhaustion dragged me under, I heard it whisper. Not words, not quite. Just a lullaby in a voice that wasn't human. I woke to Rule 20 scratched into my arm. Not the wall. Not the fridge. My skin. It read, "Sleep only when it sings." My sanity frayed. I couldn't tell dreams from waking anymore. Sometimes I walked the halls and found doors leading into endless staircases or rooms filled with mirrors. Always the coin was there. One night, I dared to smash it. I grabbed a hammer, raised it high, and brought it down with all my strength. The coin didn't dent. Instead, the hammerhead shattered like glass. The coin pulsed then once like a heartbeat. The walls shuddered. Lights flickered. And from every apartment door on the floor came the sound of locks sliding open. One by one, the doors creaked open. The hall filled with whispers, dozens of voices speaking in unison. I couldn't make out words, only the rhythm. A chant, low and steady, building in volume. Figures stepped out. Neighbors I'd never seen before. Their faces were pale, stretched thin, eyes hollow. Each one held a coin in their palm. The same coin as mine. They shuffled toward me, coins glinting faintly. I backed into my apartment, but there was nowhere to go. The windows still showed only fog, the door blocked by the procession. Then, as if on cue, all the coins dropped from their hands. They hit the floor with a deafening clatter, rolling toward me. Mine slid across the floor to join them. The coins spun in place, faster and faster, until the sound became a roar. My ears bled from the pitch. The apartment shook, walls cracking, the air thick with static. From the whirl of metal rose something dark. A shape half-formed, like smoke twisted into flesh. It had no face, only a gaping hole where its head should be. The neighbors knelt, heads bowed, whispering as though in worship. My body locked in place, frozen, as the shape leaned toward me. The hole where its face should be pulled at me, sucking the air. I couldn't breathe. My chest burned. My eyes blurred. Then, with a hiss, the figure spoke through me, not at me. "You broke the rules. You are mine now." Suddenly, I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I stood in a vast hall, endless doors stretching in every direction. Each one bore a number. Each one rattled, something inside clawing to get out. The coin appeared in my hand again, heavier this time. Its cracks glowed faintly, light seeping through as though barely containing fire. A single word etched into its surface, Warden. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the hall. The figure loomed behind me, guiding me forward. One door swung open, revealing a small, dim room, a replica of my apartment. I understood then. The complex wasn't just an apartment. It was a prison. Every tenant was a prisoner, every door another cage. And I had been drafted as the next guard. The figure pressed the coin into my palm until the metal burned my skin. My veins lit up like fire, the mark searing deep. The coin had chosen. There was no escape. I begged, pleaded, but the neighbors only watched. Their faces blurred, melting into featureless masks. The chant grew louder, vibrating through my bones. The figure's whisper filled my skull. You broke the rules. Now you enforce them. The doors around me slammed shut, their locks clicking into place. The apartment complex reassembled itself. I was back in my room, but it wasn't mine anymore. The rules still glowed on the fridge. Only this time there were more. Dozens more. I picked up the paper with shaking hands. At the bottom, written in fresh ink, was a final command. Do not attempt to leave. You are the warden now. The coin lay on the table, pulsing faintly. I knew if I touched it, the building would obey me. But the thought twisted my stomach. Because it meant I wasn't a tenant anymore. I was part of the prison. Another cog in the cycle. Forever trapped, forever watching. The only way out was to pass the coin on to someone else. Someone foolish enough to break the rules. So if you're reading this, consider it your warning. The coin is already moving. Sooner or later, it will roll to your door. And when it does, whatever you do, don't pick it up.